Welcome to our weekly Forex Forecast, and this is for the week of April 29th to May the 3rd, 2019. Just a quick disclaimer here before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. As usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our weekly calendar. So starting the week off here, we have Spanish elections, and it is holidays in Japan. So just keep that in mind. There is extended holidays in Japan. So if you're trading in the Asian session, something to be mindful of, that there will be low liquidity, especially if you're trading Japanese yen in the Asian session, because Japan is on holidays. All right, so starting off on Monday here, we have Bank of England, Governor Carney speaking. The central banks have been turning a little dovish lately, so any comments coming out of central banks are important. So this speech will or can have an impact on the British pound. Now, we do have the core PC price index in the US session, so that will be important for the US dollar. Manufacturing PMI numbers here. So for China, Chinese data tends to be important for New Zealand dollar and Australian dollar. So if you're not trading Chinese yuan, those are the two currencies that we have to be aware of when this data comes out. So watch out for that. And we also have business confidence numbers for New Zealand here. So the New Zealand trade balance numbers were quite positive when they came out last time. So if the data continues on, this will be, or positive data continues on, this will be good for New Zealand dollar. And then on Tuesday, we have not a whole lot in the London session, but in the US session, we have GDP for Canada, and it will be important for Canadian dollar there. We have Chicago PMI. Consumer confidence number here tends to be very important. So US dollar has been doing quite well recently. So if the data starts to come out negative, it could have a negative impact on US dollar. So we could start to see some reversals and such. So keep that in mind. We have Bank of Canada, Governor Pola speaking. Again, going back to central bankers here, very important to see what kind of comments they have in regards to any kind of forward guidance in terms of interest rates or the state of the economy, because they will tend to have an impact on the currency. Employment data here for New Zealand, very important again. And it is important so for us to keep this in mind, because like I said, New Zealand data has been, our trade balance numbers were positive, quite a bit positive than what was forecasted. So that will have an impact here. So if it continues on, we may be able to find some trades in New Zealand dollar there. And there was a question, does China impact New Zealand Australian dollar? Yes, it does. All right, and next one here, we have lots of holidays. So holidays on Wednesday here, we have bank holiday in China. So again, if you are trading in the Asian session, just be mindful of that, because with number of these holidays here, liquidity tends to drop off. That means our spreads go up and a market can really jump. So just be mindful of that and manage your stops accordingly. But on Wednesday here, we have in Eurozone here, we have bank holiday for the Eurozone, as well as China and Japan will be off as well. So a lot of, so liquidity will be low. In the US session, though, we have manufacturing PMI numbers and we have FOMC. So expect volatility this week due to low liquidity conditions. And then we have Bank of Canada, Governor Pola speaking again. I find the first speech tends to be more important than the second and third one. So this may not have as much of an impact unless he says something different. But the big thing here will be the FOMC for the US, because if the Fed changes how they are, their commentary, that will have an impact on the US dollar, especially with the US dollar being so strong recently, with low liquidity conditions. And if they are negative, it could really kill the US dollar. So just be aware. And then we have more Chinese data here. Again, watch out for reaction in Australia and New Zealand dollars, because Australia and New Zealand are big exporters to China. So the Chinese economy will have a negative or positive impact on those currencies. On Thursday here, we have another central bank here, and we have Bank of England. We have the bank rate, not expecting anything to change here. But again, it will be the commentary that will really make a difference, with most of the central banks turning negative here. So we have Reserve Bank of Australia has turned negative, Fed, Bank of Canada, ECB, all of these central banks have turned dovish. So if Bank of England kind of follows the same path, it could have a negative impact on British pound. However, Bank of England has not been dovish like the other ones so far. They've kind of held steady. So that's what we are going to watch out for. Everything's expected to stay the same, not expecting any interest rate hikes. But again, it will just be the comments and future guidance that can really impact the currency. And of course, we have the conference right after. Usually we see a reaction when this first comes out, and then right after, we then tend to see a reaction when the press conference happens. So there tend to be two reactions when we have a press conference right after. And same thing with the FOMC here as well. Expect an initial reaction when the statement comes out, and another one during the press conference, because one, they will have comments. Secondly, reporters ask questions, and based on how those questions are answered, we can see a reaction. And then we have Australian dollar data here, building approvals. Again, bank holiday in Japan. And on Friday here, we have our non-farm payroll. So a huge week for a US dollar, and expect volatility this week due to low liquidity, as well as the ton of data, red data that we have coming out, two central banks, and a ton of data for the US dollar. So US dollar could be volatile. So if you're trading US dollar, watch out for volatility there. Nick, I agree with you. It may not be the best week to trade because of low liquidity and a lot of volatility. So we could get some moves that may be very sudden. Okay, and now next, let's go on to our charts here. We'll start off as usual with our euro dollar, and then we'll work our way through other currencies. Okay, so euro dollar here for the for this week here, we see that price has been dropping here. Last week we were looking for price to drop, it did, and now bias is still to the downside here. We have a nice candle close. It has broken through this important support resistance level, but do keep in mind this is a bit of a support resistance zone here in this area. So if you look back here, this is where price had trouble moving higher, and this is where we are. So that's first thing to keep in mind. But we do have a nice bearish candle close, so I will look for a pullback and looking for a further drop. So the first target here is 1.10, and then a second target would be 1.08. Now, having said that, do keep in mind that we have a ton of US data coming out. Now, how can that impact us? So what could happen there is price could go back into this range. So it's kind of traded in this larger range for quite some time, and now it's starting to come out. But many times what we find is when something like this happens, we have a ton of data coming out for the US, and let's say if that data is not positive, this one could go back in here. So do keep that in mind as well. If price goes above this 1.08 120 level, it could just trade sideways here and go back into the range. So that is definitely something we have to be mindful about, because it can do this, right? So bias is to the downside, but if you find that when the pullback happens, it goes through this 1.12 level and holds, then we are expecting a range bound move, and US dollar could weaken, which means this could go up. Okay, pound dollar here, pound on the weekly. So pound as well has been dropping. As we can see, it has this trend lower as well. So with pound, bias is also to the downside, and I will just remove a few extra ones from here. Okay, so as we can see, that's our bias. Last week we were looking for price to drop. It did, and now we have a bearish candle. So still biased to the downside. For this one as well, I would say we could look out for a pullback here and then a drop. That would be my assessment or my bias for pound dollar going into the week. But again, if US dollar changes, it will change across the board. And now we are seeing, or this week we saw that pound dropped below this support level. But if it goes back in, it can do the same thing. It can become a range bound here as well for if the US dollar starts to pull back. So, but for now, bias is to the downside. 1.2840 will be the first target. Second one is 1.2850. And then we do have a third one here as well, which is all the way down here. So that will be the third, which is a 1.2580 level. So bias is to the downside here for this week. Aussie dollar here, Aussie we saw dropped quite a bit, and then it has, it came right into the support level, went through it, and now it's pulling back. So from our weekly perspective, we see that price is into the bottom of this range. It's been trading in this range for a bit, and now we have tested the bottom of the range. So last week, our bias was to the downside because it was at the top of the range and it had rejected the top, which meant it was going to drop. And it did that. So now we are at the bottom. What now? So in this case, bias is still to the downside, but do understand that we are into the bottom of the range, which means we could get pullbacks here. So I would look for a pullback. And with this one, we could potentially get a pullback into that level there, and then a further drop. So bias is still bearish, but watch out for pullbacks. And first target will be the bottom of the range, 0.6990 level. And if it goes through that, then we are looking at quite a, let's go back here. So this is where we are. As we can see, this is a very, very important support resistance level. So if it gets through that, then we are looking at next level of 68.20. And then beyond that, we have 67.50. So bearish bias here for Aussie as well. New Zealand dollar here, this one has been, so like I mentioned, the trade balance numbers had come quite strong for New Zealand dollar. And as a result, we have seen price go back up. So we have this large pin in the bottom. And when we have large pin in the bottom, price can reverse. So that's something to keep in mind. For this one, I will be looking for price to pull back higher here as well into 0.6720 level, and then potentially drop from there. So do a back test of this support and resistance level at 0.6720 and a drop from there. First target would again be the retest of the bottom. And if it doesn't go through, it can do this. And second option is that it goes through. In that case, we can look for a continuation move to the downside. So overall bias is to the downside, but I would be watching for pullbacks because we've had some good moves with the US dollar being strong last week. I think it could change now. Okay, so again, bias for this one is a bearish as well, but watch out for pullbacks first before we see a drop. Dollar CAD here, this one has been the opposite. It has gone up, but as we can see, price has been in this range for some time. So now it's just at that point where it's pushing through the top of the range. It is kind of poised to do that. But, and as such, the bias is to the upside here. Next target is a 1.3650 level here. Now, the question with this one would be, again, if we see that price comes back in, it could get stuck in the range. So right now, it has not clearly broken the range. On the on the daily, it looks like it's gone through the range, and we are at that pullback level right now. Actually, let me just change to the daily here. See how it looks like we are into that pullback level. So it has to stay above this level, above the range, for it to continue higher. If it doesn't, chances are that it could come back in as well and kind of be back in this range. So for now, bias is bullish, but I would be careful here and make sure that it doesn't just come back. If it stays above 1.3450, we're looking at 1.3650. Otherwise, it could just go sideways again. Euro pound here, Euro pound has been interesting. It's gone, it was compressing into the support resistance level for quite some time on the daily, and now we have another pin here. So this suggests that price is likely to drop. So we have two pins into this resistance. So I will look for price to come back down now. So it seems to be rejecting the resistance. So target would be 0.8480 here for Euro pound. So bias is bearish for Euro pound. Euro Swiss franc here, this one is also coming back. So last week we were looking for price to go higher. It did. It went right into the next support resistance level here. And now we have a nice bearish pin bar, and it dropped from there. So the bearish pin bar here suggests that price is likely to drop. So the next level is quite close though, so we have to be careful. 1.1340 level here, or potentially into the bottom of this candle here. So 1.1320 level. So bias is bearish, but be careful that it may get stuck here. But overall, if you see, this is in a range here as well. A lot of currencies have been playing this range for a while now. So this one has rejected the top of the range. So I'm looking for price to come back towards the bottom of the range to test that. But in between, there are support resistance levels as well that we could see reaction at. So 1.1320 will be the first target. Second target will be 1.1250. Third target, 1.1160 level. So bias, though, is to the downside for Euro Swiss franc. Pound Swiss franc here, this one as well was compressing into our resistance, right into the support resistance level, and now we have a doji there. So this also shows that price has rejected that level, and now I would look for price to come back towards the my apologies. So now I would expect the price to come back down here as well. So this little pullback here, I will look for price to sort of redo that move back down. So looking for it to drop. Bias is to the downside here. So 1.2890. So 1.2900 is the target here. So this bottom of this range here as well. So bias is bearish for pound Swiss franc as well. Dollar Swiss franc here. So this has been stuck here for a few days now as well, which gives us reason that this could turn as well. And we are also into strong support resistance level here. So with this one, even though our candle has a lot of bullishness in it, we have to be cautious. So it could go higher. It could go all the way into 1.0320, but I would watch out the resistance here. So if it does not break above 1.0230 130 level, chances are it will come back. So this is the type of move I am expecting from dollar Swiss franc, perhaps another push higher, but then a drop. So bias right now for this one is slightly neutral because it is still bullish in the candle, but I think this one could turn around here. So first target here would be 1.01. Zero level, so looking for it to drop. But now on the flip side though, if it does go through, so let's say it does go through, then I will look for a pullback and a continuation, because there is another level up here that it could go test, just like this one did. So it got stuck here for a while, but then pushed higher. So this one could do something similar. Watch out for that. That will be the risk on this trade. But otherwise, I will look for price to go into resistance at 1.02 and then come back down. So that's my base case scenario for dollar Swiss franc. Pound yen here. Pound yen has dropped. Last week, we were looking for a drop, and it did, which is a good thing. But now, let's see, where are we? So this is where pound yen has been trading. It has been range bound for several weeks now. So if you take a look at it, so 5 weeks, it's been stuck in this range. It went higher, it dropped. So first it was trading in slightly bigger range. Now the range has narrowed and it's sitting right into that support level. So it hasn't broken the support level yet, but bias is bearish and I will watch out for the break of the support. Now, having said that, do keep in mind the Japanese holidays. They're off for the whole week. So there's like 10 days of holidays, and that could give rise to low liquidity conditions and what that means is that price could move in either direction very, very rapidly. And this is a good time when market makers can manipulate the market because there will be low liquidity conditions. So when we see these flash crashes and stuff like that, it tends to happen in low liquidity market conditions, but it doesn't mean that it will just crash. It could also move in the opposite direction, because this is when it can be manipulated because you don't need as much money to move the market. So it provides that great opportunity. If market makers were to manipulate it, this is a perfect opportunity to do so due to low liquidity. However, bias is to the downside, and I will look for price to come lower into 141 here. So that's the bias for pound yen. But watch out, like I said, for all yen crosses, we could get crazy market moves because of thin liquidity. So for now, bias is bearish. 141 is the target. But like I said, we do need to see a break below 144, and then only can we look for that continuation. But it does look poised to drop. So this is the type of move that I would expect here, looking for price to drop. Pound yen is bearish. Euro yen here, this one as well, we have seen price go all the way up into this top here of this previous range, and now we are at the bottom. So price has dropped nicely. Last week we were looking for a drop because it was rejecting the high, and we did get that nice drop. But now, again, like I said, we had a really nice bearish candle close here, but then look what happened. It turned around. So even though the candle is strong here, nice bearish candle, same thing happened here. We had a nice strong bearish candle, but it's reversed here as well. Strong bearish candle reversed. Now, again, we have a strong bearish candle here, but be mindful of the same reaction because we are into the bottom of this range here, and this is an important support resistance level, as we can see right here as well. Price had really hard time breaking through this. Finally, it broke through here, but it rejected here. Finally, it had lots of trouble here and finally broke through, which means very, very important support resistance level, and it could have trouble going through that as well. So if it doesn't break 124 to the downside, chances are it will go back in. But should we see a break of the support here, I will look for price to drop further. First target would be 122.50 level, and then we are looking at 120.80. So bias is bearish, and but we have to look for break, because if it doesn't break, it could do a reversal. So be very careful. Ooh, sorry, that scared me. Bias is bearish here. Dollar yen, this one as well, we see that price went into the high here and then it could not go through. So we have a bearish pin bar here, which means the bias is to the downside. So I would look for price to drop here. 110.50 will be the target. Second target would be 109.50. But again, I would say yen crosses, be careful. And then we have Aussie yen here as well. This one had a nice pin bar here, so we were looking for a drop. We got that, and now we are getting close to the support here. So bias for this one is also bearish. 77.50 will be the target. So bearish bias for Aussie yen as well. New Zealand yen here, we see price has dropped. So last week we had a nice bearish engulfing candle and we saw a drop. But like I said, the trade balance numbers had come out positive for New Zealand dollar, which pushed it higher. And that's why we have this pin on the bottom here. And see how we had a pin in the bottom of this candle and see how price bounced up. Similar thing here, we had a large pin. Even though there was bearishness in this candle, there was a large pin, which pushed the price higher. So pin basically shows a rejection of that level and generally means that it can move in the opposite direction. So bias here is, there is bearishness in this candle, so it could move lower, but if Chinese data comes out positive, for example, New Zealand data comes out positive, this could move higher. So watch out for this move back into 75 level. And if it moves higher, then I would look for price to go all the way into 75.80 and potentially a move down from there. So this one I think will be a little bit harder to trade just because it is not quite as clear. It does have a rejection here, and that would mean a move higher. So I would keep a couple of levels in view here. One would be 74.80. If it pulls back into this level and holds below, then we are looking for a continuation to the downside, and we could do something, see something like this and potentially like that. But if it, let's say for the pullback, if it pulls back higher, it could continue on. And then I would look for 75.80 as a potential level to take a trade from. So a little bit more work required here if you're looking for a trade in New Zealand yen. CAD yen here, this one was nicely, we had a nice move here. So last week we had a nice bearish pin bar and we saw a corresponding drop. So this is still bearish. I would look for a further move to the downside. 82.20 is the first target. And then we have 81.50 and potentially 80.50 level or 80.60 level. So bearish bias here, 82.20 and 81.50 will be the next two targets. All right, so let's go into our commodities now. Gold, what's going on with gold? So gold, it came into support. So here we see how price was just stuck here for a while. And we had talked about how price got stuck in these places and usually it turned around. So similarly here as well. So now we see that it's pulling back. So from a weekly perspective, we are back into this level. It went through the support, turning resistance and went through that. So now next level is 1298. So what 1300 level. So looking for it to go higher and then it could go even higher than that. So right now bias is bullish for gold. So this is what I would look for and then potentially there, or it can go all the way and then show us a reversal at 1312 level. But overall, this is bullish. Now, if US dollar, the data starts to come out negative or FOMC is negative, this could turn around and drop because we do have support resistance right kind of where we are right now. So let's take a look. right into that level. See the support resistance level? Price could turn here as well. So if we see negative US dollar data or FOMC is bad for the US, this will move in the opposite direction. And overall bias right now, it's still bearish. As we can see, it's making lower highs. So this one could turn around. Just keep that in mind as well. Okay, so next one here looks like, okay, so we'll come back for, actually, let me do silver, if I can find it here. Okay, silver is similarly doing a similar move here as well. It has bounced higher, or it is bouncing higher. So bias right now is bullish here for silver as well. And 15.34 will be the target here for silver. So we have a bullish pin bar for silver, which means it could go higher. So bullish bias for silver here as well. So let's take a look at oil, and then we'll take a look at our copper. Oops, excuse me for a second. Just need to go back to, there we go. Okay, oil here. Oil has dropped. So oil has dropped here. It was bullish for quite some time. And now we have a strong bearish candle here for oil. So last week it was holding above the support level. It went all the way up, but now it has reversed from the support resistance level. This was a strong level, as we can see, huge drop from there. So we have a strong bearish candle here. So this is a bearish pin bar. So looking for it to pull back further, or looking for it to drop further, but do watch out for pullback. We could get something like this and then a drop. So bias is bearish. 60.50 is the target for oil here. And as we can see, it could drop. And if it goes through that, 57 or 58 will be the next target. So bearish bias for oil. And that could translate to dollar CAD moving up. Copper here, copper has been range bound for quite some time. It's been trading in this range. Now it's pulled back up a bit. And in this case here, it is looking bullish, but I think that's more of a pullback than really a bullish move. But it could go all the way into 2.89 and then drop from here. So this is the type of move I would look out for copper. So looking for a move higher into 2.89 and then a potential drop back into the bottom from there. So slightly bullish bias here as well. Okay, so the next one here, let's take a look at Bitcoin here. Now, this is not the latest data. It's my broker doesn't update on the weekend. They're not open. So do look at your updated chart there. But based on this Friday close here, this is looking bearish. And I will look for price to come back down towards 47.65 here. It tried to go through here. It got stuck right into the next support and resistance level. It was bullish. It got stuck there. And now we are back down as well. So this is a strong bearish candle. And I will look for a follow through. 47.65 here will be the target. All right. So now we are into equities here. And let's take a look. Equities have been quite strong. So if we take a look at S&P here, very, very strong. It's into all-time highs, and we have a very strong candle. But we also had a strong candle going into these highs last time. But right now, with the earnings seasons, I think things are looking good. So this is looking bullish right now, which means it could go higher. I would look for it to go into the 3,000 level. I think that level is not too far, but I would be careful here though, because this is where price had dropped quite a bit for last time as well. And what could happen sometimes is just it does a spike and then drop. Watch out for that. But for now, this is looking bullish, and 3,000 will be the next target. And then we have Nikkei here. As we can see, Nikkei has been holding above this previous support level, which suggests that it could move higher as well. So this one is looking bullish. We have a pin bar here, a bullish pin bar, and we could see a move higher. The target, first target here will be 450 and then 700. So bullish bias for Nikkei here as well. But I would just be mindful, just be careful with the equities here, because equities are going so strong right now. And a lot of times we could see reversals. And this one here as well, NASDAQ all-time highs. It's gone through the previous level and we are into all-time highs. So I think this one could also get into that 8,000 level potentially. But like I said, watch out for turning points here, because it has gone through our previous high and now it's holding above that high. And so bias is bullish for this week, but I would just be cautious. Okay, DAX here. DAX has also been pushing higher. We have a nice bullish candle close here. So bias is bullish, and next target here would be 12460. So bias is bullish for DAX as well. FTSE here has been struggling a little bit, but this one here went through to the resistance level, support resistance level here, and we have a bearish candle close. So this one could drop 73.70 back into this level here. That will be the first target, and then it could potentially come back into 72.80. So this one has a bearish bias, whereas all the other ones are looking bullish still. All right, so that's all I have. Any questions before we wrap it up? Okay, and just to let you know, there is a corresponding spreadsheet that I prepare if you want something at a glance. All these targets and the market direction will be in the spreadsheet for all the pairs that we discussed here. And I will be posting it. If you're on my mailing list, you will get the spreadsheet automatically with the link to the recording. But if you are not, then you can sign up. If you watch it on YouTube, there will be a link below that where you can sign up to receive this spreadsheet. All right, so we'll wrap it up here. Have a wonderful weekend, or the rest of the weekend, and a great trading week. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.